Ladies and gentlemen, I'm calling this meeting of the Oakville Public Library Board to order for Thursday, April 17th, 2025. And before we get into the actual business of the meeting, I'd like to read our territorial acknowledgement for the Oakville Public Library. The Oakville Public Library is situated on the Treaty Number 14 and Treaty Number 22 treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Haudenosaunee. Oakville is currently home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Regardless of where we come from, we are all interconnected through the land that we live on, the water that we use, and the air that we breathe. We are committed to a continuous learning journey and allyship. We seek to elevate Indigenous voices and lived experience to cultivate reconciliation in Oakville. Madam Committee Clerk, do we have any regrets today?
We do. Andrew Cashman.
Okay, thank you. And we want to wish Andrew all the best and to get better soon. Item number 3 is declaration of pecuniary interest. Members of the board, do you have any pecuniary interest to declare today? Seeing none, we'll move on. You've received your minutes from our public meeting from March 20th. They were circulated in the package. Is anybody willing to give me a motion to approve those minutes? Thank you very much. Seconded by, thank you. All in favor? That's carried. I don't know.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
I know, I was just about to, I apologize. So it's Rebecca and Avis. No, Rebecca and Avis.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a number of consent items today. In fact, we have 4 of them. Does anybody wish to separate any of those, or are you satisfied with the reports as is? Ray?
Yes, I move all consent items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3, 5.4.
Thank you. Are there further separations? Is there a seconder to raise motion? Thank you very much. Meredith, all in favor? Those are carried. For the sake of those watching, we've just approved the consent items, which are generally agenda items that do not have a specific approval other than a recommendation for receipt for information. And that would be 5.1, which is the 2025 Oakville Public Library Key Board agenda items. 5.2, the health and safety report. 5.3, employee retention and turnover metrics. And 5.4, dress code and staff identification policy. There are no confidential consent items today. We do have a confidential discussion item, which we'll deal with later on. And we move on to our discussion item, starting with 7.1, the Oakville Community Foundation presentation. And that would be why Wendy's here, I would assume. Tara, did you want to frame this before we hear from Wendy?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'd just like to introduce the Oakville Community Foundation. We invite them annually to come in and talk to the board about the holdings that we have with them and go over the finances and the investing that happened in 2024. So with us tonight, we have Wendy Ranella, Lori Armitage, and Fred Pinto, and I'm going to hand it over to Wendy.
Thank you very much, Tara. And my colleagues have joined me online. So just to give you a little background, we're going to start, although Bill knows all this, because Bill used to be chair of the board at one point in his life. So if you have any further questions, you can direct them all to Bill after our presentation. So I am the CEO of the Community Foundation, and joining me tonight is Fred Pinto, who's a volunteer. He's been a board member for 6 years. He's the chair of our investment committee. And in his day job, he is the president of CFA Toronto, which is the biggest certified financial advisor society in the world, I'm told. I hope I got that right, Fred. And prior to that, he was the VP or SVP of asset allocation at Avisa Wealth and a member of the board of the Responsible Investment Association. So you can see we have some competency in this area. And also joining me is Lori Armitage. Lori is the longest serving employee of the Community Foundation, and she's also most knowledgeable about charity pooled investments, which is what you have with the Community Foundation. So I know some of you have been through this before, but if we just advance on the slide. Oh, perfect. So there's over 200 community foundations in Canada. The oldest is over 100 years old. We're 31 years this year. And we're actually the 10th largest community foundation, even though we're the 25th largest municipality in Canada. We held $140 million in charity pooled funds as well as our own direct assets at the end of 2024. We released or distributed over $5 million in grants to charities. And we also returned or repatriated about $10 million to other charity pooled funds. So we are a big operation, and Lori has a lot of work to do. So if you want to flip over to the next slide briefly, that's kind of a fun page. You can see who you know. Keep flipping. I think you get these later. Let's go over to the next page, please. So this is our strategic plan. We are in the final year of a 4-year strategic plan, which we built after COVID. One of our priorities is to reduce our costs. So since actually I started in 2015, we've reduced our fees from a surcharge of 1.5% on the first $500,000 to 1.125. I know it's a terrible number, but we're shrinking it gradually on the first $2 million, plus an additional 20 basis points off of our investment management fees. So we've got reduced at least over 50 basis points in the last decade, and that's a priority for our board. And then the strategic priorities are on the other side. You can see the focus on community resiliency and charitable sector recovery, which the library's partaken in with us. You've been recipients of a number of the funds that we've distributed on behalf of the federal government, like the Community Services Recovery Fund, which funded the Elder and Residence Program, amongst others. And finally, I think we have a really nice relationship in terms of knowledge, because the Community Foundation spends a lot of time creating original local research. So last year we did a whole report on climate. The year prior to that, we did the first history of the treaties in Oakville. And you are at the library are responsible and helpful to us in sharing that knowledge across the community. So we have a very long-standing relationship between the library and the Community Foundation, which is on the next deck page. There we go. So I was looking at this. It's like 26 years, which I understand the average marriage in Canada is 15.3 years. So we're doing really well. We've gotten along for a number of years, and what the role that we fulfill is very unique. We are like an outsourced investment management oversight for you. So instead of creating your own investment committee, populating it, selecting your investment manager, directing them with an investment policy, asset allocation, selecting those strategies, we have really clever people at the Charitable Foundation who do that on behalf of you. So I'm going to turn it over to two of them now. I'm going to let Lori, who's if we could get her up on the screen as well with the image, and Fred, that would probably be for the best. Well, thank you, and I'll come back when there's questions. Lori?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. It's a pleasure. I think we were able to do this presentation last year, and happy to be back again this year. Great to say. If you could just flip over the next slide, that would be great. As Wendy mentioned, 26 years of partnership. So what's happened in that 26 years? That's what I'm going to talk a little bit about. First thing, looking at the graph over on my left side is fund holder support. So our fund holders over the last 26 years have supported almost $156,000 in fund holder grants that have gone out from the Oakville Community Foundation to the library. And then that other little corner, that $53,000, is some of the funds that have flown to you from some of the federal programs that we've been able to participate in. And the Oakville Library was a recipient of some of those programs, such as the Community Services Recovery Fund and the Canadian Healthy Communities Initiative. So great partnership, and we're happy to be able to work with you and be able to facilitate those programs. Looking over closer on the right-hand side, this is the asset balances that the library holds as at the end of December 24. So we're looking at $1.4 million. That's within 3 different funds that are held at the foundation. There are 2 agency funds. So agency managed, as Wendy mentions, are funds that we manage on your behalf. Your investments are pooled with our investments. And those assets belong to the library. So they're not on our books. They're on our books as a liability, and they're your own assets. So that's that first big one, the $1.2 million is the Oakville Public Library Endowment Fund. And then the smaller one down at the bottom, almost $40,000, is the other agency fund, which is the Oakville Public Library, the Burkett Family Fund. And then there's also 1/3 fund, just the $200,000, which is the Jack and Joan Wood Oakville Public Library Flow-Through Fund. So this is the fund that is one of our assets. So a tax receipt would have been received for it. But it's designated towards the hospital. So all of the granting goes directly towards the hospital. If I could have you move to the next slide, please. So this chart here is showing since 1998, what have those funds done? So what has been the growth on those funds over those last 26 years? So you can see over that 26 years, there's been $1 million of capital contribution. So new money that's come into the foundation. And then there's been $300,000 that's been granted back out to the library. So when you wish to pull out some money, you just send us an email requesting the funds and we disperse them back out to the library. So $300,000 has come out, but the funds now are sitting at $1.4 million. There's been almost $700,000 in growth in investment returns over those 26 years. So this slide is just a really good visual to see what the benefit of having those dollars invested with the Community Foundation have done over the last 26 years. And if you could just move to the next slide. And I think at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Fred, who's going to walk you through a little bit of the investments and the investment committee.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lori. And it is certainly a pleasure to be speaking with you this evening. I believe I spoke with you last year, and when Lori and Wendy asked if I was available to do this presentation, I said for sure. Always happy to talk about our community foundation and in particular our investment strategy and our investment approach. So what I'd like to do is just give you a little sense of our investment committee first of all, and then I'll transition to our investment manager, Fiera, and then finally I'll touch on sort of their approach to sustainability or ESG. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So our investment committee, as Wendy noted, is a very, very talented investment committee. I'm certainly very fortunate to be the chair. This is actually my last year as chair, and I'll be transitioning over my responsibilities to Lindsay Patrick. You can see that there are 6 individuals on our investment committee, all of whom have extensive experience across the investment industry. In different areas. So whether it would be in capital markets, investment management, individual investments, and also institutional investments. And each of them brings an interesting perspective to the investment committee because they look at our overall investment portfolio from a different vantage point. We meet as a committee once a quarter with the investment manager, Fiera Capital. And really, our responsibility is really as fiduciaries in the oversight of the investment portfolio. So our responsibility isn't necessarily, although we do, ask really tough questions of Fiera, to go into individual securities or individual approaches. It's really to see whether or not Fiera is meeting the investment mandate and they are fulfilling their investment philosophy with respect to the Oakville Community Foundation. And as you can see, as I said, there are 6 individuals on our investment committee. Our pool, the Oakville Community Foundation investment pool, is split roughly 58% in public market investments and 42% in private market investments. And that was a conscious decision that we made a few years ago. And it was basically to be honest, to address periods in the capital markets like we're experiencing today. Very, very high volatility, very, very uncertain markets, given what's going on globally and in particular in the US. And the portfolio is really defensively positioned to deal with situations like this. So as I mentioned, we've got roughly 42% in private markets investments. Those would be in asset classes like private equity, infrastructure, real estate, agriculture. When I note those asset classes, those are really long-term asset classes. And what they allow for is they allow for defensive positioning when public market investments like we're experiencing today, equities, fixed income, not just here in Canada, but in the US and globally, are experiencing volatile and volatility. They actually act like a buffer to sort of protect our portfolio during periods where we're experiencing today downside protection. So if we go to the next slide, The next slide talks about Fiera. So our investment manager is Fiera Capital. They're one of the largest investment managers in Canada. They have roughly $167 billion worth of assets under management. They are one of the largest managers, not just in terms of absolute dollars, but also one of the largest managers who looks after endowments and foundations. And that's a real interesting and a real strength of theirs, because they understand not just our approach, but really what the endowment and foundation market is. And essentially what that is, and Lori's going to touch on this in the next couple of slides, is our investment portfolio generating enough income to generate returns to cover our spending policy? And that's really important. And when we look at the returns over the course of the last several years, you can see returns there ending December of 12.5%. On a 3-year basis, 6%. On a 5-year basis, 8%. And again, on a 10-year basis, 8%. Those returns really allow us to achieve the objectives of the foundation and also achieve our spending policy. I'll give you some returns here at the end of March of this year. So if we look at March of this year, just before markets got a little crazy, the 1-year return would have been about 9%. 3-year return, almost 8%, 7.7%. 5-year return, 10%, and then over 10 years, again, about 7.7%. So they're generating sufficient performance on a net of fee basis to be able to accomplish our performance objectives. As you can see, if you look at that little note on the right-hand side of the slide, on a 3- and 5-year basis, the portfolio performed above median with respect to their peer group using the GMR and Mercer reports. So that's a little snapshot of our investment committee, the investment manager Fiera, their investment approach. And now if you go to the last slide, the next slide talks about Fiera and their approach to ESG and responsible investing. One of the primary reasons we hired for Fiera was we wanted a manager who would be consistent with our overall approach to ESG or sustainable investing. And not a manager who would be into ESG investing when ESG was in vogue and out of ESG when ESG, quite frankly, was not in favor. And I would say from an industry perspective, there are many managers today who are actually backing away from some of their sustainability commitments across a number of different alliances, whether they be the Net Zero Banking Alliance, the Net Zero Asset Manager Alliance, a whole series of sort of larger groups that are committed to sustainability. And in part, that's because of what I would say is the politicization of ESG across a number of different jurisdictions, particularly in the US. And I would say that Fiera is one of those managers who is not backing away from their sustainability commitments. And that's actually very important from an OCF perspective, but because that is core to what we believe in. Not only are they not backing away from their various commitments and their various policies, and you can see there on this page, they're members of a number of different groups, whether it's the Net Zero Asset Manager Commitment, the Responsible Investment Association, the Canadian Coalition of Good Governance. So not only are they not backing away from these commitments, they're actually adding to the resources on their teams. Typically, once per year, we get their sustainability folks to come in, give us a presentation. And what we have noticed since we've hired Fiera over the last couple of years, not only are they adding to their resources, but the strength and the rigor in which they are actually implementing their sustainable investing process has actually gotten better. So we're firmly committed to Fiera, firmly committed to their sustainable investing approach. And I would say as an investment manager, they have delivered on the investment returns to ensure that we meet our commitments, and in particular, our spending policy. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lori to talk a little bit about our spending policy. Next slide, please.
Great, thanks, Fred. I just want to point out, I think that earlier I might have mentioned the Oakville Hospital instead of the public library, and I apologize for that. I think that was just pointed out to me. So yes, apologize for that. Definitely speaking about the library this evening. Moving on to the spending policy. So spending policy is what governs our fees. So the fees that are the administration fees and the granting that are charged to the funds on a monthly basis. So all fees, be that the investment management fees, I'll start with those ones, are actually a flow through. So what happens with those is that the investment manager, FIER in this case, charges us, and we charge that directly back out to our fund holders. So those are charged on a monthly basis on the average fund balance, and it's charged proportionately to the assets that you own in proportion to the overall pool that's invested. The second component of the fees that's charged is the administration fee, and that's the amount that's charged that covers the OCF administration. And those fees are set annually by the board. So the board reviews this annually. As Wendy mentioned, the goal is to be bringing these fees down. We just recently, as of January 1st, effective January 1st, reduced the fees by 2 basis points. So every year when we're doing our annual budget, we're doing our best to see how much we can afford and how much we can bring those fees down. Currently now, as you can see, the first tier, the fees are tiered. So the first tier is on the first $2 million. Within all of the library funds together, aggregated together, are under that $2 million. So the fee that the library would be paying on an annual basis is the 1.125. So combination, when you add our investment management fee, which was for 2024 was 62 basis points, it's about 1.745 of fees that are paid annually. Next slide, please. So I think we're just going to pass it down to one more slide. Thank you. And it's just more of an introduction or introduction to our team. So currently, as you can see, I think we have 11 people on staff. We had a little bit of turnover last year. So we lost Frances Pace and also Dana Rirlo. That was our accountant. Retired. Thank you.
She retired.
Thank you, Wendy. And we're fortunate to fill those positions with 2 great people. So we have Jaya Mutu, who's joined us as the Director of Fund Holder and Community Engagement, and a new accountant, Roseanne, who's fulfilled the accountant role. So great staff to work with, lots of knowledge here. As Wendy mentioned, I am probably the longest standing staff, going on to my 15th year, I think, at the foundation. So it's been a pleasure. If you move to the next slide, we have our board of directors. So this is our current board of directors for the 2024-2025. So these directors get reelected at the AGM. So the AGM comes up in June. So you'll see a new slate of people starting in June. But this is our current selection of wonderful volunteers that help support the foundation. And I guess we'll move down to the next slide, please. And just a couple of key dates, as I just mentioned, the annual general meeting is coming up on June 5th. I think we're going to do a little bit of the business first, and then right after that, there's going to be a bit of an award ceremony where we're going to have the opportunity to present some awards to some of the students that have been rewarded some scholarships. And then up in the fall, the annual Give Oakville. Hopefully you'll be able to participate in that once again this year. And then once again, our holiday event at the end of the year to help celebrate our volunteers and fund holders. And I think that's all that we have right now. And I guess we can open up to questions.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Anybody have questions for Wendy? Celso.
I was wondering if you have the annual rate of return of our portfolio and how that compares to the one of the entire fund that was presented here.
It's the same.
I'm just doing some mental math. If it's 8% for the last 10 years, you would double your money every 7 or so.
Yes, but you also pay fees to the investment manager and
so the
to us.
8% is not net of fees?
It's gross, yeah. Yep,
So then you double your number every 11 years. And we've been on that for 25-ish?
So the funds haven't started at 1.17, right?
Yeah.
It's
over
grown
time.
over time,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah, the dollars didn't all come in on day one. They've been gradually coming in. So that math wouldn't work exactly. We can go back and try and look at those numbers for you in a closer matter, but it it's not that the whole $1 million didn't come in 1998. It was
of
more
course.
gradual.
Yeah, and that's what would be taken into account in an annual rate of return, right? Just the inputs and outputs, and then how it progressed over time. So I think what you're saying is the exact same as the overall fund?
Yes, the rates on the pool are the same for every fund. It just gets distributed across each fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. That was great. You know what? It's nice. The the Oakville Community Foundation investment committees have been there through the years so fantastic. Oakville's really lucky to have folks like that who are willing to, give their time, and they do a fantastic job of protecting money. So, how long have you guys been dealing with Fiera?
Fred, 7 years?
7 years, that's right.
7. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
There's usually more questions when we're in a negative position.
It's going to
Yeah, just-
inspire one. There's Ray's got one.
Yeah, just a quick question, Fiera. Mentioning all the foundations, how many does Fiera have under their portfolio, the Canadian foundations? Just us, or is there a whole whack of them?
Oh, there's a whole whack of them. Fred, do you have any guess?
We asked that question actually, and they were probably saying like we don't have a precise number. I think they are the dominant manager in this space, and some of those foundations wouldn't necessarily just be community foundations. They may be university foundations. They may be private family foundations. So I wouldn't hazard a guess right now, but they are the dominant manager in this space in Canada.
Substantial. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Any further questions? I'm not seeing any. So Wendy, thank you very much for your presentation, and for the team. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you taking care of our money for us.
Our pleasure.
Yep. And we look forward to seeing you again next year.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Bye,
Could-
team.
Can I get a motion
Excellent.
to receive today's presentation? Thanks, Bill, and thank you, Rebecca. All in favor? That's carried. I'll get this straight someday. Okay, moving on to 7.2 year-to-date financial status indicators.
Sorry, yeah, just before I hop into that, just to touch a little bit on CELSO, 2018 is when we moved the money that we had into the Oakville Community Foundation. Before that, it sat in a town account. The town is unable to invest. So it was at that point that we brought the proposal to the board agreed, and we moved, I think, over $800,000 at that point. So it was 2018 that the library took their fundraising dollars and moved it over.
Can I ask a question to that?
Yep, it's also then Ray. Hold on, it's also was
my
first.
apology.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So the return that we saw in dollars that we saw on that slide, is it since 2018 that we made that move, or is since the beginning? Do you know? Well, the beginning had no returns, essentially, is I think what you're saying, right?
So we had the other two funds that we have, the Burkett and the Jack and Joan Woods. Those were endowments that were given to us from so they've been there for a while, but we put in our $800,000 in 2018.
Right.
So
And
I'm
the
not
and the
sure.
600,000 that was shown to us in
Yeah.
terms of return of investment is since 2018 or since?
I can check. I can confirm with them.
I think it's accumulation of
yeah.
all returns at all levels of
Yeah.
investment since we started working with the Community Foundation.
so.
Yeah.
It seems low to me. If the annual rate of returns is 8% historically, it seems low to me, just based on high numbers, mental math. I may be totally off base here,
Yeah.
but is this audited and we have,
Oh, it's highly audited, yeah. They're a very credible organization. I don't think that there would be no malfeasance.
I'm not suggesting
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's,
But, I mean, I'm sure we can get more.
Their
we
rate
can
of
get more
returns are
detailed information.
significantly higher
Yeah.
than others.
I think
But
you
the-
kinda
the key-
referenced that it's safe.
Yeah, it's very safe, and the key, and they're fairly conservative investments too. They're not taking any flyers on harebrained schemes or anything like that. But I think the key is that the value of the fund today is nowhere near what it was in early days, because we just had those endowments there before, I think,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and we have pulled money out of it as well.
and we've had some money coming in and out, and that's been reflected in that statement too. But we can get more information for you.
Thank you.
Ray and then Rebecca. No, I'm fine. Okay, Rebecca? Careful with my mic, eh?
No, it's like, hello. Is this thing on? No, I think on one of the slides, if we go back, didn't it look like it dipped a little bit as well? So maybe that has something to do with like the total amount.
I don't think we have the presentation anymore, do we?
We just don't have them to answer the
We don't
question.
have the answer to your question.
Right, we can just look at it and be like, But I would think that it dipped a little bit, so we would have lost,
Maybe that was COVID.
right?
We do take money out of it every year.
Yeah,
So that's
Yeah.
withdrawal?
Yeah, every
Probably.
single year.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, which line? This is the withdrawal? Okay,
The top line, you kind of see it goes a little bit, yeah.
okay. So this just
Yeah,
calculates.
so we've pulled out over the course, we've pulled out around 300,000, so about half of what's been invested.
I'm sure we could request a statement.
We can.
And we'll get that information because you're interested in getting more details. We'll get that for you as an information
They
item going
provide them
forward.
to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was, yeah. But we also, we relied on some of the funds from that at that point as well, so. It's a combination of, just prior to COVID, I think we took some, I can't remember, but I know
I can't remember, but.
yeah, we've taken money out from time to time over the course of, I mean, that's what it's there for. It's there for projects, right? So,
Yeah.
is there anything further on that before we move into the year-to-date? Okay. Tara?
Yeah, so see, date, Q1 is still early days, so overall we are tracking really, really well. You are seeing, we are running a little bit of surplus in both the innovation and integration and the customer experience, mostly related to positions that we are actively filling. And just as well, collections isn't equal every month of the year because there's publishing cycle, so it's a bit top-heavy at the beginning of the year related to that. But I'm happy to take any questions, but we're very much on track for this year's budget as of the end of Q1.
Thank you. Questions? Celso?
Last year, when we were discussing capital projects, two that I recall were the room rental and the photocopier upgrades.
Yes.
And you mentioned that there's some new revenues coming from that sort of source. Have we executed on those projects and that has an impact on that, or no, it's pure volume?
Yeah, the photocopier, it's probably come into effect closer to Q3, Q4, the end of the year is when that will happen. And then the room booking, even though the capital project wasn't approved by the town, we decided to move ahead with a different type of, well,
They had a
basically-
payback.
Yeah, with the surplus, we bought
Yeah.
the tablets and we're implementing that, but that is still coming in. Yeah,
So there's more potential upside.
correct.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
That's just natural increases outside of what we're planning.
Thanks, Celso. Further questions? Can I get a motion to receive this report, please? Thank you, Celso. And over here, Avis, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the staff engagement survey overview from April 17th, 2025. Well, that's today.
So the board members
April 8th, 2025, yeah.
who have been with us for a while know that the town participates or issues a staff engagement survey or it's called a pulse survey. It's changed names through over the years, every 2 years, to kind of get a sense of where staff are and their feeling. And we do like to present those results to the board. So what you see in front of you is the overview. We do have a more specific cut to it that we review internally in order to identify the different departments where it doesn't run the risk of identifying individuals. So there's a certain set size. We participate this as part of the town. They facilitate it, and we're lucky enough to be able to participate in order to do that. So what you have in front of you is the 2024 results. They are not. They definitely highlight some challenges that we are working through. We knew that going into the survey. It was taken at a very specific point in time that was not necessarily ideal from us. And I do give some context in there. We're still actively exploring, but we're trying to balance it out. And I think that the key thing that we're doing right now is trying to dig into what staff's perceptions around those questions. Because where they're really great, the staff engagement gives us an indicator. If you've read the questions, you know that people can really interpret those in a lot of different ways. And if you really dug into it, you can see there's even some conflict in between, you know, this has a high number and this has a low number, but they're connected. And so we're trying to like peel apart the onion to kind of get a better sense of, for example, mental health. Well, what does that mean? Because it can be very individual. We do have mental health resources that are available. We have seen, that wasn't, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was, I think in the 50s or 60s. So how do we get a better understanding of what can we be offering or what are you expecting us to be offering in order to more meet that expectation? So those are the questions that leadership is actively having with staff to try and dig into what does success for those different lines look like. So I'm happy to take questions about any of it.
Questions? Avis is up first.
So given that this is complex and I've been through the process myself before, does McLean and Company help you like guide in any way since they, I guess, designed the survey? Can they help tease apart some of these questions and how you can further get more information to be able to address what's come through in the survey?
Not necessarily. We have asked some follow-up questions that they've been unable to answer. Some of the challenges, they work a lot with municipalities, so they can give us more answers around what the trends in municipalities are, not necessarily in libraries. And sometimes those align, but sometimes they don't. And so, yeah, no.
And I didn't really see benchmarks in here.
No.
Like, they don't give you that either.
No.
Okay, that's unfortunate. Sometimes that's helpful.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Meredith?
Yeah, just a couple of follow-up questions on some of the things that stuck out to me in reading the results. So first of all, one of them I noticed was about employees being empowered to share their feedback upward. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more about what are some of the mechanisms that are in place for employees to share their feedback or their suggestions up to higher levels of management.
Yeah, so I would say that the primary one is through their one-on-ones or coaching sessions with their direct supervisor. We've been actively working with the leadership team to better establish those one-on-ones and having more of a coaching culture and opening up those conversations and really asking the questions of, you know, do you have any barriers to performing your duties? How can we solve them in order to try and raise some of those things up? We also have we're in a unionized environment. A lot of them come through the union and come to us, and we have some really great conversations about a lot of times what's driving the suggestion, because a lot of times they come to solution and we try and get it, okay, what's the problem that we're trying to solve in order to figure out the best way to move forward for both the organization and the individual. Those pieces. There's staff meetings. We're also, they're open to hopefully share and have conversations about different learnings that can come up with recommendations. Those are kind of three that coming top of my head.
Maybe if I can ask one other question about sharing updates the other way, so organizational updates flowing down. And I know you have the annual full staff retreat, and I was wondering, is that, so do updates just happen there, like once a year, or are there other opportunities where updates, say organizational updates or things happening at the organizational level, flow down to the staff? Yeah,
so this is something that we've been working on the last couple of years, and we definitely see a trend in here that we're trying to work out just around communication. You know, if you notice that, I feel like my direct supervisor communicates, and I get very clarity. It gets a little bit gray with management. It gets a little bit grayer when it gets up to mine and the director's level, and part of that is related to a shifting. During COVID, I communicated a significant amount. You know, there was weekly email updates and all those pieces, but since then, we're kind of like, who is the most appropriate person to give what level of updates? So we're sorting through that. I do quarterly town halls. that we have all staff. I record them so that if staff aren't working that day, they still have access to them. And we try and hit the major topics. For example, my Q1 was all about our one-year plan. These are the initiatives that we're looking to achieve. I haven't sorted out what Q2 will be yet, but that one's coming up on May 15th. And then, we try to run them every quarter in order to give them those high level, these are the projects around that, and then things that are more specific to their various areas are then flowing through managers and supervisors as needed.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, Bill?
So I was wondering, how did the concerns raised in 25 versus the concerns of 2022, were they similar? Were they different?
They were a little bit similar. The challenge we have is that they changed the questions from survey to survey. So I think there's only like 13 of the questions that are actually the same, and we have been looking at them. Some we've gone up, some we've gone down. If I were to say broad strokes, there was more of a concern about work-life balance, more of a concern about mental health. Definitely came through a little bit more, unsurprising given our current climate and where we've kind of been over the past year. I think collaboration, which is something that we were aware of from 22 and have slowly been making changes to, and have actually just in the process of finalizing a mandate document for all the different departments to really clearly identify what every department's roles and responsibilities are and how they're expected to collaborate together. We're just finalizing that piece, which we expect to help with that. Career advancement is an ongoing issue that we have. Part of that is because we have a lot of one-off positions. We have our marketing department is 3 people. There's not a lot of room for growth. There's educational requirements at different levels. So it's really hard for somebody to come in and be able to move seamlessly throughout the organization. But that's something that Tricia, our HR manager, and I have been working on, to take a look at what are the hiring requirements, what are the educational requirements, how can we facilitate some of that a bit easier. And we've been talking with the union as well. They've come back, staff have been really asking about interview skills. How do we make them clear about what we're looking for in the interview? Because there is, we've discovered a little bit of an assumption that, well, I work here, you know my skill set, and the interview is for you to tell us about it, or how to even write a cover letter and a resume. So we are going to start offering staff access to those types of resources, more interviewing skills, and hopefully bridge some of those gaps.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Celso?
A couple of comments. So the red lines on, so that's the fully disengaged, right? The red scores on all of those questions. They're all, for the most part, they're in the single digits, which is, I was trying to determine if that's a good thing or not. And did some reading, and it looks like in North America, for most companies, like 10 to 15% are fully disengaged. So while we don't want anybody to be disengaged, obviously, this is actually not too bad if you use that as a benchmark. So I think it's room for improvement, but certainly something to be encouraged by. And second comment is the areas that you identified as areas of development are very important, but hard to move the needle on.
Yeah.
And I found a couple that I think with a little bit of influence, you might be able to move the needle on with less effort. And there are interdepartmental communication, 23% on the red zone, and my direct supervisor handles poor performance or doesn't handle poor performance. So those two, I think, might be more of a potential areas of action in the short term that you can move the needle on quickly.
Yeah.
As a suggestion.
Thank you.
Thanks, also. Rod?
Ripping off what Celso said, though, 20% didn't participate in the survey at all, and then you've got 15% sort of disengaged. I wondered if, have you considered, I understand you have the annual day, and then we just heard you do these quarterly, I guess that's over Zoom or something like that. Have you considered things like management by walking around or going to the different library branches and sitting in on one of their meetings? How often do the regular staff sort of see yourself and the directors and that sort of thing, like beyond the annual day and those quarterlies.
Yeah. I will say less me, although I do try and get out to every branch every quarter with varying levels of success depending on the quarter. Caitlin does make an effort to attend they have staff meetings. The branches have staff meetings every quarter that Caitlin makes an effort to attend. Monica has more of the corporate teams, so she definitely is engaged with those as part of that. But that is something that we're continuing to talk about, is to figure out what that balance is. Jeff, or some remember a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, so I guess that's more than a couple, I had introduced like Tea with Tara and going out to the branches and was starting to work with branches. Staff had mixed feelings about that, about me being present all day. And so we're still trying to figure out what that happy medium is.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe if you bring donuts instead of tea, it'll be better.
It's true.
Further questions or comments? Okay, I have a question. So the employee engagement with the organization has been a roller coaster over the period of time I've been here. And back in the day, long before this term of the board, several terms ago, the scores were abysmal. Are we still seeing some of the remnants of that, do you think? Are you still having to rebuild from that? Or is this real time?
There's definitely some historical remnants, for sure. I think a lot of it is also, we're going in new directions. I'm really excited to engage in new opportunities, and there are staff who are very excited to join us on those journeys, and there's some who are leery of it, and there's some who are very concerned about it. And as we continue to grow as an organization, that'll just continue.
True. And what is your plan? I know you're going to do a bit more of a deep dive. What format's that going to take? Are you going to do focus groups, or like how will you actually dig into these areas more, particularly around the executive leadership stuff? That's a bit of a red flag for me, and there's a couple other ones too. How will you? What is your vehicle for that deep dive, do you believe?
So after 2022, we did hold focus groups. They weren't as helpful isn't the right word. They didn't give us the results that we were hoping for. So we have taken a little bit of a different approach. One of the benefits, Monica is relatively new, so she's been able to go into her team under the guise of I don't know, tell me, I'm new, like let's have conversations. And she's been able to have some really fantastic, really honest and vulnerable conversations with her teams. About some of those. Caitlin just joined us last January, and she's been actively trying to get out there and have those. And our managers have actually, we've given them a couple questions to be like, when you're having them, like in the moment, ask the question. And even, changing, trying to be more direct, because I think before we were like trying to get a general sense, but now we're like, when you answered this, what were you thinking? What would it take? What would select, because it's a scale of 1 to 6. What would 6 look like in your head? And then how can we actually bring that to life? And it has been interesting, because what I would assume is not necessarily what we're hearing with some of that balance. So that we're trying to take a more organic approach this time round, mostly because I think it does help us build stronger relationships with our staff. There has been a little bit of a struggle. I'm not going to lie. We have had some staff push back and say, we answered the survey, you need to fix it. And what we're trying to kind of convey to them or have conversations about is it needs to be a partnership, because we don't know. That's obvious that there's areas here that we're not sure about. What we think is gonna garner support isn't. So, it's likely not going to be as simple as us getting a subscription to the call map. To deal with people's mental health. It's probably going to be something else. And so let's understand, because so many things are unique to the individuals, with also recognizing that it's a really scary world for a lot of our staff right now. And so how do we put those safety nets or in place in order to be able to support them?
I haven't seen the town's numbers yet. I don't think they've been...
They're coming.
Yeah, I don't think they've been shared with council yet. But do you have a sense of, are they similar, or do you have a sense of where they're coming from?
I would say they are similar. I would say our top 3 and their top 3, and we're actually pretty aligned.
Okay.
particularly you mentioned the executive team, that's the same across both. And again, it really speaks to communication, I think,
Yeah.
and how we're communicating. And staff may not recognize that the decisions coming from their managers and supervisors, like what that actually communication cascade looks like and how we can do a better job with that. I will say, because I like to say this, we had an 80% response rate. Theirs was significantly lower.
Well, thank you. That was my next question, actually. So we, what, do you know what the town's
I
response rate was?
can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was closer to the 50-60 range. But I do believe it's coming for you in June.
And so, going forward, I mean, obviously, judging by the questions and my own concerns for the organization, you'll report back to us on your findings from your deeper dive. Get us a bit of a sense of what the pulse is, more specifics, and what your plan is to address some of those issues.
Yeah, we can absolutely offer follow-up, particularly around some of these areas. We did suspect that there would be lower scores, which is one of the reasons I did incorporate it into the OPL goals for 2025. We do have 2 of the scores listed in there. That way we can continue to keep it top of mind.
Why would you expect it to be lower? Just a gut instinct, or?
Well, just the timing.
Yeah.
So when it went out, we were in the mid budget season, and there was the optics of underfunding, as
That's
well,
for sure. Yep.
coming out of our collective bargaining. We had negotiated a lot of changes regarding scheduling, and so we had just in October changed everybody's schedule. And the schedules only took effect in January 1st, but we gave them 3 months notice. And it took us, we're still working through a lot of those pieces, but people who had the same schedule for years, we completely changed everybody's schedule.
Right.
So it wasn't necessarily the happiest of times.
It was inopportune.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did that inspire any further questions, or are we done chewing on this issue? I'm not seeing any further questions. Okay, members of the board, the recommendation is that the employee engagement survey overview be received for information, but I'd like to suggest a second one, that the CAO be requested to return with further information in Q3. Is that reasonable time?
Yeah, September's in Q3, so yeah.
Yeah, so Q3 2025. Does anybody have an objection to that add-on? Okay. Madam Committee Clerk, are you okay with that?
Just to confirm that the CAO returned back in Q3?
Yep,
Okay,
2025,
2025?
with further analysis and updates on findings.
With further analysis, dates, and findings.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Findings from further analysis. I guess findings of what? Okay. So that's the motion, members of the board. Can I get a mover for that, please? Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Celso. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, moving on to 7.4, that's the Q1 OPL goals.
Yeah, so these are the Q1 updates of the annual goals that the board approved back in January. Some of them are still waiting to really be engaged. We are still in a pause for the new central project. So we are continuing to do a lot of prospect research, having conversations, meetings. That'll really start to kick off when we move closer to having a concept and giving it that kind of push. So the team is working hard on laying the groundwork for some of those. I'm giving away all my CEO update things, but we are in the process of hiring the manager for 16 Mile, which will then lead the hiring for the rest of the year. So we're excited about that. Cardholder growth, we're continuing to work on. We do have the new marketing tool is in place and staff are being trained on it. So we're hoping that in Q2, by the end of Q2, we'll really start to plug in into that resource and then start to see some of the tools that we're hoping to really drive engagement around new card holders. So when you get a new card, you get a bit more of a welcome emails and follow-ups about services and kind of those reminders and building some of those relationships. What else are we doing? again, the staff engagement survey, so we've identified the two ones that, again, when I talked about sometimes there's a misalignment where one says one, but you get another one that says, and you're like, oh, well, that's interesting that they scored so differently. Obviously, there's a misalignment. So that's what we've identified as part of, so yeah, the two is my contributions are important to the success of my department, which received an 84, versus taking everything into account. I like working for this organization, which included a 69. So understanding what is the discrepancy between those two and bringing those more into alignment, which I think would have broader impacts across the majority of lines. So again, we're continuing to work on that. And then you will start to see moving forward, more engagement from my two directors in terms of presenting reports that they've written. We've been working on them writing the reports, and next they're gonna move into this position. So.
Terrific. Board members, questions? I'm not seeing any questions. I had one. I'm sorry? I'm saying the report's pretty straightforward. Yes, it is. I did have one, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I thought I highlighted it in yellow, and I didn't. Oh, no, because I'm looking at a photocopy. Darn. I don't remember what it was. I'll get you offline. If I highlighted it on my digital copy, but I didn't bring my computer, so. Okay, can I get a motion to receive this item, please? Thank you, Rod, and thank you, Ray. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, exhibit policy.
So it wouldn't be a board meeting without a policy in here. So we're bringing forward the exhibit policy, which has been updated. We've kind of fleshed it out a little bit more every time we kind of look at it. We flesh it out, provide more clarity around the different types of exhibits that we're looking to do, and just clarity around how that's being governed, a reconsideration process, and just trying to flesh that out in order to meet the needs.
Questions on this, Ray?
Is this exhibit policy in line with the town's policy on exhibits?
We did use the towns as a guide. They don't exactly align because we are slightly different, and yes.
Thank you.
I mean, the library would have to reflect intellectual freedom principles more so than the town would.
Yeah.
Okay. I just have a related but unrelated question. So we've had the banned books exhibit up for a while. Have you had any feedback on that, positive or negative?
I have yet to hear negative.
Okay.
We have heard a lot of positive feedback. My understanding from staff as well is that people have come in and made great comments about it. Also in the CEO update, we did have the artist talk. Last week we had 61 people come out for it. For a lot of them, it was the first time they'd actually seen the exhibit, and we kept getting really great feedback around it. That will be in place likely for another to the end of May, and then it'll move to another public library in the GTA area.
And nobody's found the linchpin book to pull to topple the whole thing over?
Well, they're actually all held together with fishing Moulin.
Oh, okay, good.
So, although a lot of kids' fingerprints are on the mirrors.
I imagine. Okay. Okay, Celso, you have a question? Go ahead.
One of the changes to the policy is to be considered for display in any facility. A proposed exhibit must align with the library's vision, mission, and values.
Yep.
How'd you do that?
It's a great question. I think it's really hard to put that into a definition. People are going to submit, and then it will go in front of an individual who will then be like, if it's, some of the previous, we done one last year, I think, with the Lighthouse for Grieving Children. That's a relatively easy one. If we get one that requires more complication, whether there's nudity or more challenging pieces, then that would be a different type of conversation that we would have to, and we really have to dig into, does this fulfill a purpose of educating, prompting conversation? Is it just meant to be voyeuristic, or does it actually have a deeper meaning to it that we can really provide education around and really support? It really needs to fit a broader environment that we're looking to support.
So I understand you're keeping it generic enough
Yeah.
to give you freedom to make, but can this get us in hot water in terms of being too subjective in making those decisions and perhaps unilaterally doing so?
Well, that's what we're hoping the line about, we have the right to, where is it? There is, the OPL retains the right to deny requests for the exhibit space or change, cancel, and remove for any reason,
That's good enough, right?
right? So,
I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Council. Anything further? Not seeing anything. I forgot, did I get a motion to receive this? Not yet. Okay, so I'll go to, how about we go with Rebecca and who hasn't been on the minutes yet? Everybody's got, I don't think I've captured Meredith much. Do you want to second it? Thank you. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Just want to share the wealth in motions. My head seems to pivot left all the time, I'm sure. It's me. Yeah. That's true. I'm just watching you with my microphone. I am just deeply disturbed about my microphone. Okay, 7.6, CEO update. I feel we've got most of this already.
I'm going to go through it pretty quickly.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, 16 Mile construction continues. We are hiring the manager of the 16 Mile. We just finished round 2, so hopefully we'll have them in place sooner rather than later. The new central project is still on pause. There's been a delay in the structural investigation by a month. So now we're looking at getting all the information by mid-May. So hopefully, when you see me again, I will have some information that we can figure out how we're moving forward. The digitization project is well underway. In fact, we did get some initial images of the Oakville Trafalgar Journal that are in place. So they've just finished the Oakville Trafalgar Journal, and they've moved on to the Oakville Records Star. So it's a fun process to kind of see those start to come in.
That rip is just stylistic and not actual, is it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. PowerPoint could remove it as needed.
This is, it's so rewarding to see it.
Yeah. It's a really, they've done a really good job
it's
of the digitization of the, yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. That's great.
The Trafalgar Urban Core South branch, there has been ongoing conversation. Previously, we had responded, Brandhaven had provided a document around the agreement. We had responded back. We hadn't heard from them. They were busy with site plan and some other issues. They did respond back. We've responded back. Now we're meeting Brandhaven, library, and legal on the 24th. So hopefully we'll be able to move to get that signed. April is Poetry Month, so we are actively promoting poetry at all our branches throughout April. In fact, on April 24th is Poem in Your Pocket Day, so we'll be actively promoting people choosing a poem, carrying it with you throughout the day, and sharing it wherever you go, in line at the coffee shop. Battle of the Books, one of my favorite events. For those of you who don't know, Battle of the Books has been ongoing for almost over 40 years now, and it is a regional competition that is a partnership between the 4 public libraries where different school classes compete against each other in order to win their municipal best in their municipality, both the junior and the champion, and then compete regionally in the grand battle. So the grand battle will be held in Halton Hills in May. And then, as I mentioned, we did have the artist talk. We had 63 attendees. It was really well attended. We also had James Turk from the Center of Free Expression there, and he spoke as well as the importance of the exhibit and the fact that it will be traveling around the GTA. Different libraries have been asking for it. They've been asking for it out in Alberta as well. There's just some logistics getting it out there, but hopefully we'll be able to find a way. But as Jeff asked, on social, it's been very, very positive. Everything we've heard in the branch has been very, very positive. It's really allowed us to have some really great conversations with staff, which is what we were hoping for.
Maybe they should take you to the White House Library.
You first.
Yeah, that's right.
As I mentioned in March, we did yesterday actually had our cybersecurity incident exercise. Massive thanks to Kalpana at Oakville Fire for running that event for us with support from the town's corporate strategy and government department that kind of oversaw it for us. We were lucky enough to have the town's ITS department as well as members of finance participate with us. It was a really great opportunity for the team to take the plan that they had put together and really think it through. And what we discovered, as I indicated, is that we're very good with the what, but what became clear is that we weren't sure about the how. So we knew what needed to happen, but it did highlight different things about how was that actually going to happen. So now the task before us is really to flesh that out. In particular, we did use, and the councilors are probably very familiar with this, the incident management, the provincial has an emergency management framework. So that's what we use to run this incident, and we're actually taking some of that now, gonna bring it more into the plan. And in fact, now the plan is to actually have our full leadership group undergo the IMS 100 in order to be able to really take those incident management principles and bring it into our documentation. But it was a really it was a really great morning, and everybody was very engaged. And we got to have some really great conversations, and we're definitely going to be able to take some of those moving forward, particularly related to the communication with finance or ITS or corporate communications in the event that there was a cyber incident that impacted the town.
What was the nature of the mock incident? Do you recall?
Ransomware.
I'm sorry?
Ransomware.
Okay. Who was the bad guys? Who were the bad guys?
Know.
You don't know? You didn't figure that out?
ITS resolved it in 2 days.
I imagine it's Burlington.
So that was.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Don't call me Marianne Meadward. Okay. Thank you. That's the conclusion?
That is.
Thank you. Yeah. Motion to, questions, yes.
Sorry, the first topic was 16 Mile, and you just went through really quickly, and I just wanted to clarify. I think I saw the date of completion was Q4 2025, and I want to clarify if that was when it was expected to be open to the public as well.
No, so we are expecting to take possession of it in November. It will not be open to the public. We're expecting that to happen in February.
Yes, also?
With regards to the tabletop exercise you just talked about, was there a report that came out of it with action items, improvement actions, enhancements, things that sort of need to be changed?
Not necessarily a report. We did have a debrief at the end and really highlighted those areas. Caitlin and Monica have taken a lot of notes. In fact, they were taking notes before we even got to the exercise because we went over like the whole IMS system in event, and so they're going to take the plan away and really flesh it out with their teams to fill in those gaps. As well, ITS would like another look at it. And so we're really hoping that at the end we'll have a pretty solid plan in place that then we would go on like an annual review.
Since one of the roles of a board is risk management, I'm wondering if it would be acceptable, and I guess you have to check with the powers that be in terms of ISNS and the town administration since they administer this. Would it be acceptable to get a report back once that analysis is done to the board so we understand what transpired and what the recommendations were? Because again, it's part of our role as risk management. We've had cyber security presentations brought to council before. This is to a certain extent, this is a follow-up to that. I mean, personally, I'd be very interested in knowing more about, what the results were of the exercise and what sort of steps are being taken to manage those pieces.
So I will say that the exercise was not related to the ITS systems. That is fully under the town control. Mm-hmm. It was more along the lines of, it's a busy Wednesday morning. All of a sudden, you start getting reports from the public that the public access computers aren't working, the Wi-Fi isn't working, and then a ransomware pops up, and then we're being told we need to shut everything down. How we as an organization would then deliver our service with no access to computers.
Right.
So that's really what the plan is about, is how to deliver service in the absence of any sort of technology, both short-term and long-term. It doesn't really speak to the cybersecurity piece.
Did you talk about recovery, though? So you talked about how you managed in the interim, but are you also talking about recovery, how you'd recover?
That's not
from
what this plan is, no.
You didn't deal with the recovery piece.
In terms of like the data, like if we were locked out,
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, I mean, again,
Yeah.
this is a risk to our organization, to every organization that has computers. The risk increases exponentially as the world gets crazier and crazier all the time. We know that our colleague municipalities and the Toronto Public Library and others have been attacked, and I know I have anxiety over this and all the organizations that I have some oversight over. I just think it'd be very interesting and useful for us to understand what the learnings were from that. I think it's a useful exercise. Maybe nobody else is interested, and this is just this is nerdy Jeff asking these questions. But I mean, Celso, you concur?
Absolutely, I do. That's the sort of stuff I personally am responsible for of companies that I work for, and typically in exercises of this nature, even if there's no ITS recovery portion of it, the preparedness for responding to incidents in terms of media and not only internal processes and all that is typically documented in terms of a plan, and it exposes the areas of risk or areas of improvement, if I can put it that way. I think that's where you're coming from.
That's exactly where I'm coming from,
And so...
we can definitely bring back, in terms of recovery, that's the town.
No, that's fine.
So that's, we had them come and talk about cybersecurity. We
Yes.
can have them come again?
No.
Okay.
The town talked in a very generic sense.
Yeah.
So this is an actual opportunity for the staff to experience it. And what I'm really interested in learning is what were the learnings from that? Because obviously, if you're going through a tabletop exercise, and I've been through several of them in our emergency operations center here and at the region and the police department, there's always an outcome summary. Lessons learned, next steps, things like that. What we can do to improve. I mean, clearly there'd be something. I think the board would find it interesting to learn more about that. So again, we can be doing our due diligence as part of our role of managing risk for this organization.
Sure.
So
It was,
I'm not asking for hundreds of hours of work and a deep dive document. Even a verbal presentation would be useful, I think.
yes, okay. No, I'm just trying to sort it out because it's the purpose of it was to test the draft plan.
Right.
So we can definitely maybe bring back the plan? Is that what you're asking
Well,
to see?
I think bring back the plan, but talk about how the plan fared. I mean, that old expression, every battle plan fails in the first 15 minutes of engagement with the enemy.
Right.
Like it's how did that work for staff and for the team? Did the plan work? What would you want to tweak? How did it impact your day, et cetera? I mean, there's just certain things that I think the staff would have learned from it. I think it would be very useful for us to understand, one, how the staff addressed it and how they managed and what our day looked like or our days looked like during the ransomware, the faux attack, but also how we're going to address any gaps that may have existed that day.
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning, we did identify that we have very good the how. So like first moving into pen and paper phase, and so that the step-by-steps, we have that clearly laid out in the plan. What was identified was how we were going to get there. So at what point, who was going to make the call? That, okay, we are now officially moving to pen and paper. Now we are moving from pen and paper phase into partial recovery phase. And how is that being cascaded? Because it's 7 different branches, right? So how is that information? So at the beginning, what we are going to add is much more of a flow chart of how decisions are being made and how they're being cascaded. That was one of the gaps that we identified. In terms of the actual plan itself, I think we do have to tweak it a little bit, but overall it was pretty solid.
But is that going to...
But once we have that in place, I'm happy to bring it back.
Is that going to make its way back to the plan, like what you just said, like the
Yes,
how?
yes, that's going to be integrated in an updated draft.
So
yes.
I think that's what we're talking about.
Yes,
So what
exactly
is going to
what
change the
Did you say
plan?
report?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but it's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
forget the nomenclature. It's really just I'm going to say report again.
Yep.
Is just providing us with an overview of the experience and what the learnings were, I guess
Okay.
is what it really boils down to. I'll stop using the word report.
Yeah, and what's going to be changed on
Yeah.
to the plan as a result.
Okay.
That's the
So we
most
can
important.
provide we can bring back the updated plan with how we updated it based on the learnings from.
Yeah. And maybe some narrative on how the day happened, like what happened during
The scenario
day.
that we
The scenario,
used?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to emphasize this too much, but I am.
Yeah.
That, again, a big part of what our responsibility is as governors is oversight. And so I think it's important that while the staff have to execute it,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we have responsibilities to make sure that we are doing our part to make sure that we understand what you understand and to give appropriate direction. So I think it's I think it's a very useful exercise.
Yeah.
It's not useless at all. I think it's a very useful exercise, and I think it really hones the skills of this board to be keenly aware of our responsibilities in terms of that sort of governance oversight.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to receive the CEO's report? Thank you, Celso. Who hasn't been on? I don't think I've had much from Rod, so I'm going to go with Rod as a seconder. So seconded by Rod, all in favor. The CEO's report is therefore approved. Okay, members of the board, we do have a confidential item that we have to deal with. So I have a motion that I would like somebody to move and somebody else to second for me, and that is that we go into a closed session as the matter may be considered in the absence of public under Public Libraries Act, Section 16(1)E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the board. As this matter does deal with litigation or potential litigation, including matters before the administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or the local board. Can I get a motion? Can I get this motion, please? Thank you very much. Rebecca, seconded by Meredith, all in favor? That's carried. So we'll take a couple moments. If you want to go grab a beverage or a snack in the back, we'll lock the room down and we'll go into a closed session. This meeting of the Oakville Public Library has returned to a session open to the public, and I do report that we met in a session closed to the public for the purpose of discussing litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And we are back in an open session, and we have indication that there's a motion to dispose of the business that was addressed in closed session. Councillor Chisholm, are you prepared to move the resolution? And I'll read it out.
So be.
Okay, so is Celso, are you still prepared to second? Okay, so the motion that Councillor Chisholm and Celso are making are that that the newspaper digitization update report be received, that staff be directed to undertake an in-depth investigation of access model option 1 as identified in this report for the newly digitized newspaper content, and that staff be directed to continue the current practice of providing remote, free public access to OPL's existing historical digitized newspaper content in accordance with the 1994 consent letter from the Oakville Beaver. Madam Committee Clerk, do I need to read the details of option 1?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the option that has been chosen was 1, and that reads as follows. Provide free remote public access to the digitized newspaper collection through OPL's existing third-party online platform, which currently hosts the library's digital historical collections. Now, for absolute clarity, again, we're not approving that that's our action. We are approving that staff will undertake an in-depth investigation of that access model and report back to the board. So that's the motion before us. Is there any further discussion on this item? All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Okay, members of the board, do you have any new business to bring before the board today? Staff, anything to update us on? What's the score on the debate? Just kidding. I do want to report that the next meeting will be held on Thursday, May 15th, 2025, right here in the council chambers of the Oakville Municipal Building at 7 p.m. And at this point, I'll look for a motion to adjourn today's session. Thank you, Rod, and nobody else wants to go. Bill wants to go. All in favor? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.